So, who is feeling a little bit tired today? Yep, I figured maybe I'm not alone. I'm not alone. Christmas can certainly be a tiring season. Lots of extra things going on, plus all of the things of ordinary life that don't seem to go on pause even when it is Christmas so-called break. The laundry still needs to get done, and so forth. And today is New Year's Eve. If you're planning on staying awake till midnight, there are still many, many hours until bed. I'm not usually one to stay up, but good on you if you are. I feel tired just thinking about it. In the season of Advent this year, we have been exploring the question of how is it that a weary world, weary people can rejoice. We've been sharing our weariness and talking about how systems and structures in our world are kind of designed to tire us out. For me, I think there's power in knowing that I'm not alone in feeling a bit exhausted by life. There's power in knowing that there are reasons for feeling tired that are beyond me. There is also power, I think, in lifting up stories and sources of inspiration that can reorient us around the things that really matter. This perhaps can help us let go of some of those tiring things that maybe we don't need to keep doing. And in today's scripture reading, I at least find weariness yet again. Simeon and Anna are two people who have been waiting for the Messiah for a very, very long time. They are faithful, they are devoted. They have been persistently watching and staying awake for the promised one for their whole lives. We don't hear Simeon's specific age in this passage, but some say he was an honorable, if perhaps a little hard to believe, 360 years young, right? That puts Anna's sprightly 84 years in context. In today's story, too, we can only imagine that Mary and Joseph are a bit tired, too. They were just 40 days out from the birth of Jesus when they had to travel yet again, this time to bring Jesus to the temple for ritual purification. Maybe that first night in the stable, no crying he makes, but I imagine that there were at least some tears in the 39 nights that followed. New parents being kept awake by the relentless demands of a newborn. There is weariness in today's story, yes, but there is also arrival, completion, and final rest. Simeon, we hear, was so eagerly looking forward to the consolation of his people and the fulfillment of the prophecy of a coming Messiah. And then it finally actually happened. I can imagine elderly Simeon retracting in years as he rises up and grasps little Jesus in his arms, celebrating that his long wait for the Messiah was finally over. He gives thanks to God and says now he is ready to die a peaceful death, now that the one thing that he has been holding on for has been accomplished, but not by him, by God. Anna, too, we hear, has been praying and fasting day and night in the temple for many years, trying to hasten Jesus' arrival. Her mission, too, finally complete, over in an instant. I like to think that Anna came home from the temple and finally got to crash, fast asleep, before her head even hit the pillow. Sometimes it feels like the Bible, much like the world around us, tells us to just push through and work harder and longer, to keep always awake. Be like Anna, alert and at work in the temple until all hours. Be like Simeon and just push through and keep on going through sheer force of will. Do more, help more, add on, hold on at all costs. Similarly, we are told to set New Year's resolutions to make us better people. Increase and intensify whatever it is that you're already doing, and then why not take on a little bit more? It seems to suggest maybe that we are not enough as we are. Sometimes I think we need the new year to be a little bit more like Lent, a time of letting go and giving up. Not in an overly self-denying way, but more as a way of clearing space to focus on what really matters. I don't know about you, but I don't feel like I get that feeling of full completion and total fulfillment like it seems that Anna and Simeon got from Jesus' birth very often. So much in our world feels relentless. So little, to me at least, ever feels truly done. Work keeps on coming in, dishes keep on piling up, my inbox refills moments after I clear it out. It feels tempting, to me at least, to stay awake later, to get up earlier, to push a little harder to reach that ever unreachable finish line. I remember being a kid, being in school, and the semester would end, and then it would feel like there was really nothing to do until that new term started in January. I miss those days of Christmas break that felt untethered and endless and free, like time outside of time. Time, on the other hand, is so different. As I grew up, I remember especially, when I was writing my dissertation, it never felt like I could take a break. Time is so different when you're working or you're just being an adult. I think you have to decide, which is really hard to do, when enough is enough. The break very rarely gets handed to you unless you get really sick or maybe something really major happens for everything to stop. In working for justice, in building a better world, those projects can feel just as relentless. There is always more to startle us awake, more to keep us tossing and turning in the night. The little we can do can feel like a drop in an ever-deepening bucket. It's so hard to decide to take a break when you don't really have to do it. When you know all too well that things will need to get done eventually, and they won't be done unless you do them. Some religions have very strict rules about keeping Sabbath, I think because it's just so easy to let work slip in. Technology makes it all the harder. I know many times on my day off, I grab my phone to take a picture of a beautiful view on a hike, and all of a sudden, I am pulled back into the world of the text message that flashed across my camera app screen. I do think, though, that New Year's Eve is one of those times when maybe we are given the gift of some externally imposed completion. Maybe you've already been thinking about things that you can put off until next year, at least until it comes tomorrow. Of course, you don't have to pause at the end of the calendar year, but you can. The end of the year is an invitation, I think, to pause and take stock. What in your life has run its course? What is perhaps no longer serving? What was once meaningful, but perhaps has become a habit that isn't giving you life anymore? Is there anything that is causing more weariness than it's worth? The end of the year can be a moment to realize and release, become aware of what has already come to completion, or maybe what needs to be put to an end. Maybe to see what is your part to do and what belongs to someone else or to God. If Anna had been so intent and overly focused on her fasting and prayers, she might have missed the Messiah right in front of her. Sometimes we need to pause in order to look around. Maybe the great coming has already come. At this time of year, we remember the surprising and sudden arrival of Jesus in the most unexpected of circumstances, the fulfillment of an ancient promise of God for us, done for us by God. We are reminded that all of the things that are things that may seem so entrenched and unceasing, will come to an end. Very little lasts forever. The powers and struggles of this world will pass away, and a new order is already being birthed. Maybe it is already here in some ways, already and not yet, fulfilled for us in the Christ that is born anew each year. Not because of our unceasing efforts, our relentless striving and staying awake, but because of God's faithfulness to us and to all. I've been reading some articles lately about the life-sustaining importance of not staying awake too much, instead lifting up the critical necessity of sleep. I believe that sleep is a blessing from God, and Sabbath is a commandment not meant to limit us, but to set us free. Now, I'm not talking about rest in a consumerist, self-care, just shop your way to relaxation with scented candles kind of a way. Instead, when I think of rest and Sabbath, I think of Minister Tricia Hersey's movement called the Nap Ministry. Yes, you heard that right, the Nap Ministry. It asserts that especially for people of color and marginalized communities, that rest is resistance. Rest is resistance. Deep rest, I believe, is the only way for a weary people to truly be able to rejoice. Tricia Hersey developed her ideas about the Nap Ministry while she was in seminary, struggling to balance her studies with work and family obligations. She experienced stress that felt unceasing and ever-increasing. In order to pay for school, she sold her car, and then her time became even more scarce because of public policy that does not invest well in public transit. The cost of education, a lack of generational wealth, inadequate childcare support, all of these are collective decisions that impact the personal sleep of those who are marginalized the most. These are social choices that keep many of us awake unjustly, tossing in the night with worry. We often think of sleep as a very private activity, but sleep and the time we have or don't have for it is a public, a corporate, even an ecclesial decision. And like most things, sleep is a marker of privilege. Not that privileged folks don't feel weary or face insomnia too, but nearly 44% of Black adults report having short sleep duration compared to just 31% of white adults. Poverty, gender, disability, queer, and trans identity, all of these are factors that can impact how much time we have for sleep, and also our living conditions, whether or not we can sleep deeply, feel safe and be safe, have quiet where we live. Tricia Hersey preaches about the power and importance of dreaming and sleep for our individual and collective imaginations, for our ability to rejoice, for our spirits, for our collective strength. She is critical of constant work and the way it is glorified. She says, quote, "Grind culture has normalized pushing our bodies to the brink of destruction. We are praised and rewarded for ignoring our body's need for rest, care, and repair," end quote. Maybe we need to reframe the old instruction to keep watch and stay awake for God as to sleep, dream, and be aware. Like Anna and Simeon discovered, the things we have waited our whole lives for might already be here. I believe that good news for a weary people is that completion and fulfillment and arrival are coming. Maybe they're already here. It's countercultural to say, but I believe that darkness and rest are just as much of a blessing as light and activity. Unlike the 24/7 glow of fluorescence, security lights that flick on at any movement, the earth has sensible rhythms and patterns, times of light and times of dark. The winter as a season of even greater darkness, reminds us of our collective and critical need to rest. Yes, there is a new year that is coming, but it might not be a time for resoluteness and relentless progress. It might instead be a time for wise awareness of what is truly our call, what a loving and tender, sleepy baby God's deepest dream for us could be. I wonder if the reminder to us in today's biblical text is not so much to stay awake and working at all times, to be there when the great thing finally happens, but to rest when we need to and to stay as aware as we can. Even as we may struggle in the world that is, even as we wait for change that may never seem to come, we can trust that all unjust and unceasing systems will fall, and all shall be put back together by the birth of a child. How might we live differently if we knew and believed that the end of suffering, the end of waiting, the end of yearning was truly in sight? I think maybe we wouldn't push through and keep working quite so hard. Instead, maybe we would rest deeply, knowing that the God of Sabbath is coming in haste to set all things right. Maybe rather than too much fretful planning and frantic worry about the future, too many overly ambitious New Year's resolutions, we might narrow our focus to ask what is right and just and loving in this moment, and say, that's enough. In her work on emergent strategy, writer and activist Adrienne Marie Brown is critical of how so many movements for justice and people working to build a better world jump on this endless work bandwagon and focus on objectives over relationships. She says instead, we should move at the speed of trust, focus on critical connections more than critical mass. Brown says what you pay attention to grows. So maybe don't stay awake and alert and at work for its own sake. But when you are awake, be aware. How you use your time, energy, and attention matters. What you focus on will grow. I like that idea. Rather than just passively waiting for God or grinding relentlessly, pretending it is all on our shoulders, maybe there's a third way. Maybe focusing on the budding signs of God's coming will hasten it forth. Maybe by noticing the new life that is already blooming, it will increase and come to bear fruit. Maybe by noticing the ways that the old world is already shaking and that God's kingdom is inbreaking already on through, this all might contribute to the fulfillment of God's good promise for us all. I wonder what would happen if we said, don't stay awake, just be aware. I believe God comes in darkness and deep rest. God comes in dreams and visions. God comes in the night sky and the sudden upendings that topple oppression and bring all things, all creation, all peoples back into balance. God comes in the night cries of an infant who cannot do anything for himself, yet has already fulfilled the prophecy and set all things right. God comes for us yesterday, today, and forevermore. God's promise is for always and will surely continue in the new year that is to come. For this and so much more, thanks be to God.